Good morning, Algebra 2. Mr. Woe here, and I have taken the time and worked out those problems that you've requested and prepping for the Chapter 11 tests. So, are you with me? Section 11-2 deals with simplifying radical expressions or rational expressions. And going back, you'll probably need to remember your laws of exponents. So again, pretty much the problems we're dealing with here is how do we take a radical expression, how do we take a rational expression and simplify it as much as possible. So looking at section 11-2, number 15, here are the following steps. The first step was taking, again, we have a radical divided by radical, so we can write it into this form right here, which deals with the quotient property of radicals. You can do that. The next thing I did was taking the x to the 8th over x squared and grouping them together, and y to the 4th divided by y. That's where I got this part. Remember, power divided by power, bases are the same. You find the difference of their exponents. Here is that in a radical form. Now, I took the radical form and made it into a rational form. And then from the rational form, we just simplified the fractions, and there's your answer. Number 17 was a word problem. Again, I worked it out based upon the directions in part A. They wanted us to take this part of our problem and simplify it as much as possible, which I did. So the first thing I did was, again, remembering the PEMDAS, your order of operations. I took care of simplifying this part because I have something in parentheses to the 3/2 power. That's what I did here. Still using the rules of the law of exponents. And I just kept moving on down, all the way down to the end to where I got this part right here. This right here is what they're asking you to do. We can have it written in one of two ways. And what I did here is I took 1 and divided by the 6 times the square root of pi, and that's where you'll get 0.094. You probably saw that in the solutions. Now, part B is asking you to find the volume when they're giving you a value of 500. Now, again, we could have just originally done part B just by using this formula up here, but this was really simple. All you had to do is take your S, which is 500, plug it into this part of the equation, and use your calculator. Now, for help, I'm certain you guys probably have questions as to how I got that answer. So let me find my calculator. Again, can you see the screen? Let's try to make it so you guys can see it. It's very simple. Okay, there's the screen. 0.094 multiplied by, now I'm going to put it in my I'm going to put it in my parentheses. I just have a habit of doing that in case I make a mistake. Okay, then we go 500 to the 3/2 power, so you use the caret button, shift, and you go 3 divided by 2, move your cursor over, close it up with parentheses, and hit enter, and we got 1050.95, and I just rounded up to the nearest whole number, so that's where they get the answer of 1051 cubic feet. All right, that takes care of section 11.2. Let's go on to section 11.3. All right, starting with number 5. Again, we have a rational equation. Again, 1/2 power is the same thing as square root. To get rid of a square root, we have to square it. So you square the left side and you square the right side. That deals with the properties of equality. Subtract a 4 from both sides and we get x equals 32. Now again, before you say that this is your solution, you need to go back and check mentally. So you go back to your original problem. Let x become 32. 32 plus 4 is 36. And the square root of 36 is 6. And it does equal 6. So now we can say 32 is our answer. So try to remember to do that stuff. Check mentally. All right, number 7. We have a rational equation. Again, to get rid of a 1/2 power, we have to square it. So you square the left side, you square the right side. Now the right side is going to become the expression x minus 2 times x minus 2. Do your FOIL method. That's where they get this part here. Again, set it up as a quadratic equation. That's why we set it to equal 0. Then you take your problem, and this side over here, you either going to factor it, or you're going to go and use the quadratic formula. Now again, I always try to see if I can do it by factoring first. So I asked myself a good question. What are the factors of positive 10 whose sum will give us a negative 5? There are none, so we can move on. So we have to use the quadratic formula. A is 1, B is negative 5, C is 10. Plug it in and do your math. And you're going to notice right off the bat that anytime you have a square root of negative value, that tells us that there is no real solution to this problem. That's what solving equations are about, is trying to find your real solution. This one does not have a real solution. It's going to give us an imaginary one because of that negative 15. All right, number 8. Again, some of these problems I'll work them all out. Some of these I'll just let you guys look at it. So number 8, there's the work. The only difference on number 8 is when you square both sides, you have to square the 4. That's where you get the 4 squared. Then you take 16 and distribute it into the x minus 2. And then you solve for x, and this one works. Once again, don't go any further until you check it mentally. All right, number 11, a little bit longer problem. Again, we have the cube root of 69x plus 35 equals x plus 5. Again, we have an index of 3, so this is a cube root. So we cube both sides. And then the right side is we have a product of 3 of these binomial factors. First thing done was the FOIL on this part. That's why I got the x squared plus 10x plus 25. And then I multiplied it times x plus 5. And then at the bottom of the page, I have Otis. I just took the x squared plus 10x plus 25 and multiplied it by x plus 5. Again, this was done in a previous chapter. I put it in column form. This is the product right there. So we go back up to our problem. We know now we have this part right here. Subtract the 69x from both sides, subtract the 35 from both sides, and now we have a polynomial equation, degree of 3. So there is at most 3 solutions or 3 zeros of this polynomial. All right, factoring is the only thing we can do unless you want to do the rational zero theorem. Again, I grouped the first 2, grouped the last two terms, did the GCF of each group, factored it out. Again, applied the zero product property and said each factor equals 0. Solve for x. Again, we notice here that this one has no real solution, so it cannot be the solution. So we need to go back and see if x equals negative 15 is a solution. Check mentally, and it does work. So that's number 11. Right, let's go to the next one. This one, I do believe I worked it out. There appears to be a typo within the textbook. I worked it out. Again, when I got down to this part right here, Again, we can't factor it, so we have to go a different procedure, but I think there's a typo. So KP, thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. There is no, we can't figure this one out right now. It's a little more complicated, a little more work, and I don't think you guys want it. Again, probably number 11 is a good problem to review and study. All right, let's move on. I think we're going out to the reteaches. Here's what I'll do is I'm not going to talk them through, let you guys see it. All I did is I applied the rules. That's reteach 11.1. Down below is reteach 11.2. Once again, I'm just using the order of operations and your law of exponents. Okay, that's section reteach 11.1. Reteach 11.3 is no different than what we did earlier. All right, now one thing over here is on number 1, you have to subtract a 4 from both sides. And number 4, you have to add a 1 to both sides, because once again, you've got to make sure that you have one of your radicals isolated. Okay, number 5 is worked out for us. Again, number 5, here's the work. Again, I used the quadratic formula. You can factor or use the quadratic formula. I did factoring. What are the factors of -4 whose sum is 3? We got to be -1 and 4. Set both factors equal 0 and solve for x. And then check mentally. Now again, when you check these here, this one right here, when x, when we found it to be x is -4, when we plug it back into the equation here, we don't get the same answer on the left side as the right side. So this is what we call an extraneous solution. It can't be used. So the only answer to this problem is 1. Now, question number 6. It appears that the solutions on the reteach sheet is wrong. Again, square both sides. Get 5x equals 81. Divide both sides by 5. Check your answer mentally. It works. So that is a problem. That one has the reteach solution sheet is wrong. Once again. All right. Thank you, guys. I hope this will help you guys out when you review. All done for the day. I'll catch you later. And next video will be about chapter 12, section 1. See ya. Bye.